Welcome to the Ghostly Gallery podcast, a place where we explore the world of horror and mystery in film, television, books, and popular culture. Well, greetings, everyone. Welcome to the frozen tundra of Cooperstown, New York, and Nova Scotia, Canada. My name is Bruce Marcus, and I'm in Cooperstown. And joining us from Nova Scotia, co-host and producer Tracy Asteria. Tracy, how you doing?
Doing good. It's not a frozen tundra here today, but it
No.
has been lately. So today is just a weird kind of glitch. We are headed into a couple of days of, I guess they call it like midwinter thaw for a few days before
Mm,
we go back into the tundra. So, not looking forward to that piece, but I'm going to
yeah.
take it's around 0 degrees, a couple of minuses under zero. So we'll
Yeah.
we'll see how that plays out. But how's everything been going with you?
Other than the extreme cold, not too bad, not too bad. I did want to talk a little bit about an item that came in the mail today. My subscription to Scary Monsters magazine just renewed. You can see it there. Beautiful
Wow.
image of Linda Blair from The Exorcist on the cover. A little bit of a delay in getting this issue because the folks at Scary Monsters thought that I had not made my payment. I reminded them in a very friendly way that I had, and they said, you know what, you're absolutely right. So let's get this issue out to you. And it just came in today. And I was just kind of thumbing through this issue very quickly, looking at it. And it's kind of interesting in that they're focused in on some of the great directors in horror
Mhm.
history. They have articles on lots of famous people, including Alfred Hitchcock, one of our favorites.
Wow.
Also featured in here is William Castle, one of the most innovative of all the directors who's ever done horror. He used to do all those gimmicks in the theaters and promotions, and sometimes featured gimmicks inside of the movie itself. And the article on him is written by our friend Frank Delastrito. Frank is a regular contributor to Scary Monsters. This is a magazine that has won a lot of awards, the Rondo
Mhm.
Awards, over the years. I know in recent years they've been voted best magazine, and I'm sure they'll get nominated again in 2026 when the Rondos come up. And Frank has a really insightful article about the history, both of William Castle in terms of his biography, but also his films. He was a guy who really didn't do a lot of horror early in his career, but then that became really the specialty for him, late 50s up until his death in the early 70s. And of course, the Hitchcock article, I'm really looking forward to getting to as well. So some good stuff on some famous directors. Terrence Fisher, maybe the best director that Hammer Films ever had, is also
Mhm.
featured. So it's all about great horror directors. We want to give a shout out to Scary Monsters. They do a really nice job. And if you're a horror fan, especially vintage horror films, it is one of the better publications out there. They print 2 issues a year, but they also have a companion magazine called Castle of Frankenstein, and that comes out a couple of times a year. So I believe you get 4 issues as part of your yearly subscription.
Oh, wow. The cover on that magazine is absolutely stunning. It is
Yeah.
gorgeous.
Yeah. It's really nicely done. Looks a little bit like me on a bad morning, I guess. Looks like a lot of us on a bad morning, possibly.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. You just gotta have that cup of coffee first, and then that kinda goes away.
Yeah. Well, it takes 2 or 3 for me, but everybody's different, I guess. But really a good magazine, Scary Monsters, put out by some folks who have been doing this for quite a while. Their names are Don and Vicky Smeraldi. They've been publishing this magazine for years. I think Frank Delastrito was the guy who told me about it, and I
Mhm.
decided to get a subscription and had it ever since. So it's been pretty nice in terms of a reading addition to my library. Well,
Nice.
Tracy, on this episode, we're going to talk about 2 films that are tied into Valentine's Day. We don't normally associate Valentine's Day with horror, But there have been some interesting films made along these lines. We're going to be talking about one film that is new. It came out about a year ago, just before Valentine's Day in 2025. And the other is a movie that celebrates its 45th anniversary in 2026. So we're going to get to these two films, and we're going to start with the older film, the vintage movie, 1981. That is when the cult favorite My Bloody Valentine made its debut. And this is a film that has some connections to you, Tracy, because it was filmed in your neck of the woods. And we'll talk more about that momentarily. So 1981, My Bloody Valentine, the original version. It begins with a scene inside of a mine shaft where a female miner is taking off her gear in front of a male miner. And as she does this impromptu striptease in a very odd setting, the male miner notices a heart tattoo on her body. For some reason, this triggers him, and he pushes her onto a mining pickaxe on the wall that penetrates her heart and kills her instantly. So right off the bat, we are thrown into mayhem. The film then shifts to the center of a small Canadian mining town called Valentine Bluffs. And that is a mythical town in your place, Nova Scotia, where Valentine's Day is approaching. It is a mythical place, right? There's no real Valentine Bluffs, is there, Tracy?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, that's what I thought. So in Valentine Bluffs, the mayor of the town, Mr. Haniger, has decided to reinstate the Valentine's Day dance, the town's signature event, which has not been held for many years. Why? Well, 20 years earlier, a mining accident in this town had been triggered by two really careless and lazy supervisors of the mine. They failed to check the methane gas levels in the tunnels. The resulting methane gas explosion results in the mine caving in, and that traps 5 miners underground. They're buried down there. In the meantime, the town's popular Valentine's Day dance goes on as scheduled, even though these 5 men have now been left unaccounted for. Now, days later, only one of the 5 men, Harry Warden, is found alive. And he has apparently survived by eating the bodies left behind. Rather gruesome. He is so emotionally distraught by this experience, I guess who wouldn't have been, that he has to be placed in an asylum. Now, he later escapes the asylum, and then he kills the 2 supervisors responsible for the methane gas tragedy. He also leaves a note warning the town's residents never to hold the Valentine's Day dance again, or else. The movie then shifts back to the present day. The town has decided to bring back the popular Valentine's Day dance, which again has not occurred since that fateful night when the tragedy also simultaneously took place. Now, this development that the Valentine's Day dance coming back is received well by many of the town's younger residents. These are people that seem to be in their 20s, maybe 30s. And the group includes a character named Sarah Mercer. But there is a complication in Sarah's personal life. Sarah is involved with 2 different men, one a miner named Axel, and the other a miner named TJ, who happens to be the son of the town's mayor, Mr. Haniger. Doesn't seem like they like each other to begin with, and their hatred only grows because of the conflict over Sarah. Now, in the days leading up to the dance, Mayor Haniger receives a heart-shaped box that looks like a box of candy, right? Instead, it's housing something very different. It is a human heart, one that is eventually discovered to be from a young female victim. And there's also a note accompanying this gruesome box, and the note warns that the return of the Valentine's dance should not happen. Then we have one of the citizens of the town, Mabel Osborne. She is the owner of a local laundry service. She is attacked and killed in the laundromat by a figure wearing a miner's outfit, including a mask. So we don't know who he is. Well, all of this, the murder of Mabel Osborne and that strange Valentine's Day box that turned out to have a human heart in it, this all leads to speculation that Harry Warden has escaped and is targeting people who have chosen to celebrate Valentine's Day once again. Now, when Chief Newby, the head of the police department, contacts the asylum, he is told by one of the secretaries there that there are no records that anyone named Harry Warden ever resided at the asylum. They have no records of him ever being there, even though supposedly he was put in there after he was discovered in the rubble of the mines. Now, Chief Newby and the mayor decide, with all of this going on, it's better that we cancel the impending Valentine's Day dance. This, of course, upsets the younger residents in the town. They had been looking forward to this event. So they decide, well, we're going to make do. We're going to hold a party at the actual mine as a replacement for the dance. Interesting decision. Not very smart, but we'll get into that more. Not a surprise, the killer shows up at the party. He begins a new reign of terror. In the meantime, some of the partygoers, unaware of the killer's return, decide, hey, let's go exploring in the mines. Another great idea. So TJ and Axel band together. They enter the mines to rescue these people from potential danger. And that leads to a final chase, credible confrontation that also involves Sarah and her friend Patty. And during this confrontation, we learn the identity of the masked mining murderer. So that is the storyline for My Bloody Valentine, the original film from 1981. So Tracy, first off, what did you think of the story? Did you like it or not?
I did. I actually really liked the story. Honestly, way more than I expected I was going to like it. It's pretty simple. The whole mining town legend angle I thought was really unique. And it doesn't feel like Valentine's Day is just like a theme of this movie. It actually matters to the story, which I thought was pretty cool. And I was also really looking forward to it again because it was filmed in Nova Scotia. So that kind of made me a little more interested and a little more invested in it. Um, it was so cool because it's just like that gritty small town mining atmosphere throughout it. And it feels kind of familiar, like 70s, late 70s, early 80s vibe. And I thought that was pretty fun to watch in a weird way.
Yeah.
I loved the setting. The setting was just unique, and it was like claustrophobic, I guess, at spots. I thought it was so interesting, and I thought I had saw this movie before, but I hadn't. So again, it was kind of like brand new to me while I was watching it, and I think just knowing where it was filmed, it's kind of like it goes back to like local stories that everyone knows growing up and hearing about them, and they don't know if it's a myth or not. So I think that kind of ties right into like this movie. Like the teenagers or the young adults that we see, they don't really believe that something bad is going to happen if they hold this Valentine's Day dance. So
Yeah.
I just thought it was pretty cool. Good storyline. I liked it.
Yeah. Some background on the film. Shooting on My Bloody Valentine began in September of 1980, so fall of 1980. And it took place around the Princess Colliery Mine in Sydney Mines, Nova Scotia, which had actually closed in 1975. So this is 5 years after the closing, but it was still available. They were able to shoot the film there. Really gives this movie a very atmospheric and authentic feel. And I'm curious, Tracy, being from Nova Scotia, have you ever been to Sydney Mines?
Many, many, many times. My
Really?
grandparents, yeah, my grandparents were from there. My dad was actually born there. and I still have family connections there. And
Hmm.
it's about a 3-hour drive from where I am. Um, I've been going on and off probably since the early 80s. Like I would go up with my parents, and sometimes like I'll go up to that area, not very often, but I'll go up. It's not changed very much since I
Hmm.
started going back in the 80s. It's a little more modern now, but it definitely that really small town feel. And, everybody knows everybody, and it's you know, word of mouth travels fast. And I don't think they do any mining there anymore. I think the last coal mine shut down in like maybe 2020. But
Hmm.
yeah, I've been there. It's an interesting place. Cape Breton itself, it's like the island attached to the mainland of Nova Scotia. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. And Sydney Mines is very industrial, like a very industrial small town. Yeah.
So as you're watching the movie, you're seeing specific places that you remember.
Vaguely familiar, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Vaguely familiar. And it kind of like all feels the same. It all feels very familiar. It was kind of weird, kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, you got to go back there now that you've seen
Well,
this movie, right?
exactly. I'll have to
Yeah.
do that in the summertime when it's warmer.
Right. So the setting to the film, it's kind of dingy and gray. They shot this in the fall, and it almost seemed like late fall, even though it began in September, the filming. I
Mhm.
want to say they had to go for at least a few weeks, so maybe they went into October, but there weren't a lot of sunny days. It seemed like it was dingy, gray, kind of overbearing in some ways in terms of just the atmosphere. But then in the movie, you've got the attitude of these young residents living there. And, you hear stories about, growing up or living as a young adult in a coal mine. And you sometimes hear depressing stories, people that want to get out of there. But when I'm watching the movie, the young residents here, they seem very upbeat, positive. They seem to like it there. Did you get the same impression?
I did. I did. It was so interesting to kind of see that. Like they were all very happy. And it's like I I would think if I was growing up in a mining town, small mining town, I don't think I would be kind of that happy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they seem to enjoy living there, and they don't seem at all frightened by the incident, the horrible incident of 20
Mhm.
years earlier. And the attitude almost is, it's a legend. It's not real. Even though you've got this bartender who's a true believer and he's telling them that this happened, you should not have this dance again. I mean, he's real serious about this. And they're like, this is urban legend or suburban legend, whatever you want to call it, a rural legend. This is just not true at all. And that's, I guess, why they want to go ahead and have the dance, even though there have been these supposedly historic warnings given by some of the people involved not to have this Valentine's Day dance again. Tracy, let's talk about the film's reception at the box office. So it comes out February 1981, right around Valentine's Day, and it didn't do particularly well in theaters. It did turn a profit, I think, of a couple of $1 million,
Mhm.
but it was not a huge success. But in the years since, 4.5 decades since, the movie has become a favorite of many horror fans. Kirk Hazen is one of the people who really likes this movie. And if you're somebody who likes the slasher subgenre, this fits right into your alley. I'm not
Mhm.
particularly a fan of that kind of horror movie, but I do like this one. I thought this was really good. So it's a perfect example of a cult classic. It wasn't a bomb at the box office, but probably a little disappointing for the producers, the director. They probably wanted better results. But in the years since, this has become really kind of a semi classic.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like one of those legend type movies, you know. It's one that everybody knows and they've heard of this movie, and everybody talks about it all the time.
Yeah. My Bloody Valentine is also a very violent film. You know, don't be fooled by the fact that it came out in the early 80s. It's quite gory for the time period, but it was even more so in its original form. So when the final print was put forth, censors, they looked at it, they demanded substantial edits. They did not like what they saw in the original print. And the director of the movie, George Mihalka, believed the edits were the result of the film coming out in February of 1981, which was very soon after John Lennon's horrific murder only 2 months earlier. And as a result of the edits, we had 9 minutes of footage was taken out, and that apparently really changed the tenor of the film. People that have seen the original version say it is, you know, really remarkably violent. And Mihalka believes that the tie-in to the Lennon murder, his killing, definitely had an effect on this movie. Now, even with those edits, this is a pretty impactful film. It has its share of violence, and it also has a huge fan in director Quentin Tarantino, who's obviously been influenced by horror movies over the years. He was a huge fan of horror growing up in the 70s and 80s. And then when he started making films, even though he hasn't made a lot of pure horror films, but you certainly see elements of horror in many of his movies. And he has called this his favorite slasher film of all time. So high praise from Quentin Tarantino. So Tracy, let me get your assessment of the movie. What did you think? And what is your final ranking for My Bloody Valentine?
Wow. So first of all, I didn't know that they cut 9 minutes out of this movie. Do you happen to
Yeah.
know, like, is there like I guess a director's cut available somewhere? Do you know?
I'm not sure if there's a director's cut, but I do know that
Mhm.
there are people out there who have seen the
Mhm.
original version.
Mhm.
If I were to guess, I'm going to guess that there probably is a director's cut out there, but I have not seen it. I can only imagine what was in there. The version that I saw, and I watched it on, it was either on YouTube or the Internet Archive. So I actually watched it on my
Mhm.
computer because I couldn't find it on any of the streaming services I normally watch on TV. So
Right.
the version that I saw, and I think the version you saw, the edited version, without question.
Yeah, definitely. Because I rented it on YouTube the other night because that was really the only place that I could find a copy of this movie. Um, when I did a search to try to find it on my usual streaming platforms, all I kept coming back to was the 2009 version of this movie, I believe
Right.
it was. So yeah, it definitely on YouTube, but interesting. I didn't know that. But I'm giving this one 3.5 stars. It's
Hmm.
dated, but it's so nostalgic in like that old school kind of a way for me. I thought the setting was awesome and the performances, like they all feel so real. I like that they use a lot of the hometown folk, I guess, as background
Hmm.
actors.
Yeah.
And you can feel it in the way they talk and their kind of mannerisms, and very Kate Brettonish, just the whole vibe of that movie. Um, as I was watching it, there were like a couple of things that really stood out to me when they were kind of getting ready for the party. The older lady, Mabel, she kept carrying around like this box with her with the decorations for Valentine's Day, and it was a Mooseheads box. So that's a very popular beer company in Nova
Hmm.
Scotia.
Yeah.
And then when they were having their party, a lot of people were drinking Keith's beer in cans or bottles, and again, that's a very Nova Scotia beer. So I thought those were just very Cape Bretonish.
Yeah.
Um,
What's
so
the brand called?
um, there's Keith's. So it's just like Keith's
The
Indian
first
Pale
name
Ale.
Keith. Yeah.
Yep. And the
Never heard of
second
it.
one. Yeah, no, it's the most popular one, and I'll have to tell you a story another time, but, the actual Keith's Brewery is based in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and
Hmm,
it's a haunted location, and we've done an investigation there. So
really?
oh, yeah, there's actually news TV footage of parts of our investigation. I'll have to share that with you another time, but,
Yeah.
very, very cool. And the fella that played Chief Newbie, his name is Don Franks, and he is, basically a Canadian icon. He played, the character of Walter in the 1990s TV series La Femme Nikita, and
Hmm.
he's a long-standing film and TV actor, voice acting. He's had so many roles. I believe he passed away in 2016 maybe, but he's his his son is Rainbow Sun Franks, who's another well-known Canadian actor.
Hmm.
And he was just so great, very memorable. Like when you see him, you know him from somewhere. But yeah, overall 3.5. And again, I'm not like a slasher vibe kind of a movie. It's not a kind of film that I would seek out and be really excited to watch. But I really did like this one, and
Yeah.
I would like to see the 9 minutes that were cut out just for the sake of seeing them. Maybe that's a mistake. I don't know, but I might have to see if I can look for
Yeah.
it somewhere.
Right.
But yeah, I did really like this, Bruce. Genuinely
Yeah.
liked it. Yeah.
Let's pick up on this idea of the actors, and it is really a no-name cast.
Mhm.
You mentioned Don Franks, who is well known in Canada. I have to admit I'd not heard of him before this movie, but he does a very
Mhm.
good job as Chief Newbie. He's obviously a professional actor, long career in the industry. Then you look at the other actors. I mean, they're even less well known. An
Mhm.
actor named Paul Kellman, who died a few years ago, plays T.J. Hanniger. Laurie Hellier is the actress that stars as Sarah Palmer. Then you have an actor, Neil Affleck, who plays Axel. I was curious if he was any relation to Ben Affleck, but I didn't see any mention of that on IMDb. But none of these are household names. But you know what? That doesn't matter. The lack of big name stars doesn't matter here because the performances, they're all good. These actors play their parts in a grounded and believable way. You mentioned that a lot of the extras were actually townspeople,
Mhm.
and it gives this film an authenticity and a little bit of a grittiness that sometimes, is missing from, let's say, a Hollywood type production. And we're
Right.
gonna we're gonna see that in our next movie. This is very different, and I like that kind of a tone and tenor. It does make it more authentic. It does make it more believable. I thought this was well done. There's a lot of mystery in it. The pacing is good. The way that facts are slowly revealed about the original incident, the original tragedy from 20 years ago, they're revealed in kind of a slow way. So you try to put the pieces together. And then ultimately, the reveal of who the actual killer wasn't a total surprise, but wasn't necessarily what I expected either. And I
Right.
thought that was pretty well done too. So I really like this movie. It's a movie I first saw it years ago. It must have been when we first got HBO in the early 1980s, and I remember it was shown back then. But I hadn't seen it since then until, well, really just a few days ago when I
Mhm.
rewatched it because I wanted to be better prepared for this show. And I really have an appreciation for it. I think it's very well done. I agree. I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. So this was a real strong effort. I have not
Mhm.
seen the remake.
Okay.
I've heard some people say that it's not really as good because it doesn't have that grit and authenticity of the original movie. But
Mhm.
I'll be curious to see that and then make a comparison on my own. So you give it three
Mhm.
and a half stars. I give it 3.5 stars. This one definitely worth watching.
Yeah, oh my gosh, absolutely. I would be curious to definitely see the remake just to see it for the sake of seeing it. But I can't see how it would compare to the original, just because I think the original holds a really, I guess, interesting space in the horror genre. Um, so I
Well, you
yeah,
want to see the new one because Jensen Ackles is in it, right?
I did not know that, Bruce.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow. Okay, that's
from
interesting.
Supernatural.
Interesting. Oh, definitely. And I mean, I would be curious too, because like, where the heck would they have? They must have did it in like I guess like a studio or something. Like, I don't know how well they would be able to replicate like some of the mining scenes, because I know in this movie, like they were real. They were in the real mine.
Oh yeah.
And to me, that feeling would be just so scary, but I mean, it's so authentic at the same time. So I'd be curious to see how they did that in the remake, just to see it. But yeah.
All right, Tracy, those are our thoughts on 1981's My Bloody Valentine. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we will look at a new film that came out about a year ago, early in 2025, and that is Hard Eyes. Stay with us right here on the Ghostly Gallery. Welcome back to the Ghostly Gallery podcast. Bruce Markison, along with Tracy Asteria, your hosts, as we present our Valentine's Day themed program. We talked about an older film from 1981, My Bloody Valentine, now a more contemporary effort. It's a movie that came out about a year ago, February of 2025. Tracy, tell us about it.
So Heart Eyes, it's a 2025 Valentine's Day slasher from director Josh Rubin. And he's known for mixing horror and dark comedy. And the film stars Olivia Holt and Mason Gooding. And Mason Gooding is Cuba Gooding Jr.'s son, which I was not aware of. So I thought that was pretty cool. It was released in the theaters in February of 2025, just in time for Valentine's Day. And it got really good responses and really positive reviews from the audience, um, which I thought was kind of interesting. So the movie, it plays with the idea of modern dating and how awkward and uncomfortable it can be. And it starts out very simple. The character of Ali and Jay, they meet by chance at a coffee shop. And when I first started watching it, I was like, oh God, it's a rom-com. And I was like, oh, I have to watch it. I have to watch it. Um, but I can't tell you how much I dislike rom-coms. It's like you will never see me ever watch one of those. So
Really?
when oh God, no, that's the worst type of movie that I could ever watch. So when I first started watching it, I was like, "Oh, please, no." So I kept going, but started off a little awkward. Um, and so it focuses on like this masked serial killer known as Heart Eyes. And this killer is actively hunting couples around the city. The killer, he's targeting people who appear to be in relationships. And then after this Heart Eyes killer kills these people, he stages the murders in very disturbing ways, and he tries to make it look romantic in a very strange way. So the film, it quickly sets up this contrast between, light rom-comish type things, graphic violence, and then that's kind of like the main core of this story. So this is just like a really brief overview of the setup before we get into like more details about the story. Um, I definitely, I typically shy away from this kind of a movie. I don't like rom-coms. I really don't gravitate towards slasher movies, like a lot of blood and gore and stuff like that. Um, and I'm not actually a big Valentine's Day fan either. So
Really? Okay.
I know, right? And I
Yeah.
mean, I know like this whole Valentine's Day thing, but yeah, it's I like the chocolate, but yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I wanted to give this one a chance. I've read so many great things about it. It's got this very big cult following to this movie, and they're already I don't know if they've started production, but there is a script for a sequel to this because of just how popular this movie was. And I again, like, I mean, I've avoided watching this for a year, and I only really watched it for the purpose of tonight's presentation. So yeah, that's kind of like my kind of like initial story on this, but I'm curious, Bruce, what was your initial thoughts to this movie? And I gotta say, what did you think about that opening scene?
Mm. Well, I have to say, going in, well, I'd heard of the movie, and I think I
Mhm,
remember when I went to the theater, because I went to the theater 4 or 5 times last year.
mhm,
And I do remember seeing this. Maybe it was when I went to see Nosferatu, which came out just after or on Christmas Day, and I saw it after Christmas at the end of 2024. So I
mhm,
remember seeing the preview for the film, but I didn't really know much about it other than, yeah, there was somewhat of a Valentine's Day tie-in, and it had a little bit of a comical aspect to it, more than a little comical
mhm,
aspect. Other than that, though, I really didn't know that much going in. Even though it's been out for a year,
mhm,
I didn't have a lot of expectations one way or another going in, other than what you had told me about it. As for the opening scene, that was very creatively done. It very much starts in a romantic comedy type of way, and then involves some comedy, and then very quickly degrades, if you will, into sheer horror. And since it's early a movie, I'm not giving things away. The guy who's proposing to his girlfriend takes an arrow to the forehead, which is very difficult to survive, and he does not. I thought, in some ways, in terms of creativity, that opening scene was maybe the peak of the film, maybe the
mhm.
high point there. And I think it did fall off significantly after that. And that may give you a little bit of a clue what I think of this movie. I'm not as big a fan of it as you are. I think there are some things that are worth discussing and some interesting points to the film, but when you're not able to sustain that creative force from the opening scene, at least in my
Mhm.
mind, it's not a good omen for the film.
Yeah, that opening scene, it was the whole entire scene. It was very, very interesting. I will tell you that. Oh, if my camera happens to go jiggly, please excuse it. My cat is might be using it as a toy. Sorry.
Okay. Your cat is not a fan of hard eyes, I take it.
No, no,
Yeah.
he is not.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the characters for a couple of minutes. The lady Allie is played by Olivia Holt. I thought she worked really well as the lead character. Um, from my aspect, I related to her a lot. I thought she was pretty grounded. I didn't think she wasn't portrayed as like this helpless victim in this movie, like she probably could have been.
Hmm.
Um, but again, she's like not overly brave or anything either. I think mm, I think from my aspect, I think she was like emotionally exhausted and just really cynical after the breakup
Yep.
with her boyfriend. And her reactions,
Hmm.
they just felt really real. And then everything, it just goes off the rails. But I think when she's confronted, like she's consistently scrolling on social media and she's like tracking what her ex-boyfriend is posting and with his new love interest. And it just, the grittier she becomes. So, yeah, I totally get that from her. Um, Now, the fella Jay, played by um, Gooding, he's interesting. He comes off as like really charming, like very overly charming, which I thought was really suspicious, quite frankly. Um, it was kind of mysterious. You just don't know what his deal is. And I was always wondering if like he's unlucky or if he's hiding something. Maybe he's in cahoots with this heart eyes killer. I didn't know. Um,
Hmm.
but the chemistry
It's
between
kind of
Jay and
fake.
Ellie,
Kind of fake.
it is. It is. Like it's
Yeah.
like, and I hate to say it, it's kind of like the if if you're a fan of the Hallmark movies, he kind of reminded me of like a character in one of those
Yeah.
Hallmark movies, which I'm embarrassed to say I don't watch the Hallmark movies either. I probably should because some are very well directed and very popular, but it's they're too
Mm.
rom-commy for me. It's
Oh yeah,
terrible.
definitely.
I'm more of a horror movie person.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, together their chemistry, like I thought was really good. Um, they're awkward. She's always kind of like greedy with him because she doesn't really want anything to do with him, but he's
Mhm.
kind of like her boss in a way for the day. Because I want to say
Yep.
this takes place over 24 hours or something like that. It's not like over weeks or months. This is like a day or so.
Right.
Um, and they are two people who they honestly they don't know each other. She doesn't like him, but they're forced into this crazy situation of trying to outrun a killer,
Yeah.
basically. And then you have the hard eyes killer. You spend most of the movie, you don't know what the deal is with this killer. He's killing he or she. They're killing people that are in relationships for what reason we have no idea. And it just kind of keeps it interesting right up until the end of the movie when the final reveal happens. So, did what did you think of these characters and did anyone stand out for you in a good or a bad way?
Well, let's start with Olivia Holt, who's the lead in the film. And I like Olivia Holt.
Mhm.
I think she's a likable actress, has talent. I think she could have a really good career, still very young.
Yeah.
I remember when she did a show for Disney called I Didn't Do It. My daughter Maddie used to watch that. We used to watch it together. It was actually kind of a funny show, even though it only lasted a couple of years. She was one of two fraternal twins, and her brother and her, they're always getting into trouble, and hence the title. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. Also reminiscent of my childhood when I frequently screamed those words out. I didn't do it when something went wrong in the house. So that really kind of hit home with me. But she was good in that show. She was very funny.
Mhm.
But in this movie, I just I have to disagree with you. I don't think that she and Mason Gooding had much chemistry at all. I just
Mm.
didn't feel it. Now that's a very intangible thing. It's very hard
Yeah.
to assess chemistry between characters, and people are going to have wildly different interpretations on that. But I just didn't see the chemistry there. You know, they have this dinner date early in the movie, and it really consisted of nothing but vitriol from
Yeah.
Holt's character of Allie McCabe toward the character of Jay Simmons. So much so that he says, well, that's it. I'm going to leave now. And he does end up going out into the street. She then runs after him. And then we're supposed to believe that moments later they're so madly in love that they start kissing. Come on. I just didn't see that. I mean, their date up until then was miserable. I mean,
That's
absolutely
right.
miserable. I did not see that. Now, there's another actress in the movie that I like a lot. That's Jordana Brewster, who plays one of the investigating police officers.
Mhm.
She was great in one of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. It was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning, and she's kind of the heroine in that movie. And I thought she was outstanding in that. But in this movie, she plays this wacky police investigator. I just did not think that was the right part for her. She was not
Mhm.
believable. Now, her police partner is played by Devon Sawa, and he's probably the most well-known horror actor in this film because, you know, he was in the Chucky series. He's done a number of other horror movies. And I thought he was just completely wasted in this small role as her police partner. Again, he's the most
Mhm.
recognizable horror person in this film, and his role is just a throwaway. He doesn't have a lot of screen time. He's not particularly interesting. He's overshadowed by Jordana Brewster's wackiness. I just don't get it. I mean, is that the most you could do with this
Mhm.
actor who has a pretty good horror resume? So that was disappointing to me. So I think Olivia Holt was really good. I think some of the other actors maybe misfit, and they just didn't use Devon Sawa well at all.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was actually disappointed with not seeing Devon Sawa much at all in this movie, um, because he was billed as a big part of this film,
Right?
and just to have such a small role, because I just remember, seeing all these advertisements through Instagram or TikTok or even like Facebook posts about just like how great this movie is. And he was always in like these promotions. So I thought he had like a really huge role in this movie. And it turned out he didn't, which I thought was really, I don't know, awkward, really. Like I thought it
Yeah.
was really weird. Now, Jordana Brewster, when I first like, I didn't place her as being in
Mm.
those movies. For whatever reason, I thought it was the lady who had played on Criminal Minds, but that was Paget Brewster, and, they look very similar. They are related, they're cousins, I believe,
Oh,
but,
really? Hmm.
they are so I when I go back and I look at it, um she is a very good actress, but in this movie, like, right from the start, you knew that there was something off about her character, like, it was just she played it so sketchy, but that was probably the way that it was written, and it
Yeah.
just for me, just because of the way that it was portrayed, like, I felt the storyline was really predictable, if that made sense. Um, So the ending didn't really surprise me too much.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
like it didn't. But
Well,
yeah, I mean,
remember when she first shows up at the crime scene? And
yes.
it's a horrific crime scene, and all she can do is go on about somebody she's dating. And, you know, I know
Mhm.
it's supposed to be funny, but it just came across as crude and disrespectful. I just didn't buy it.
No, and, like, that's definitely especially, like, a detective or a police officer would never, like, take out their phone and start scrolling on, like, one of those dating apps talking about that as there's,
Yeah.
like, somebody squished and decapitated, like, you just that wouldn't happen, so it was so strange, like, that part was very strange for me,
Yeah.
but,
I mean, what is she supposed to be, Ace Ventura, the way that he acts at a crime scene? I mean, that's a different kind of movie. I mean, come on. Come on. Come on.
That's a good comparison though, actually,
Yeah.
really. I
Yeah.
thought, yeah. And then like Olivia Holt and Gooding, like I don't recognize like I honestly didn't recognize them from anything else either. So this was the first time I've actually seen them in anything. I
Yeah.
didn't realize that either like both of them actually have quite a few projects behind them. So I was not aware of that at all. But yeah. Um, yeah, and I guess, like, speaking of the kills, like, the one with the squashed head and everything, that's a big part of this movie, and the kills in this movie, like, they're kind of spread out, they're not one right after another. Um, I expected it to be kind of more intense than what it was, just because it was billed as, like, a slasher film. There were a few moments that I cringed,
Mhm.
like the squashed head for sure. That was just Ugh, I didn't like that one. But they were meant to be creative, I guess. Um, Definitely different. Did any of those kills stand out for you? Like, was there one that you were like, "Oh my god, I can't believe they did that," or "That was absolutely disgusting," or funny?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there was anything that was that surprising. I thought the final scene, which takes place in the chapel, was fairly
Mhm.
effective. And there were a couple of creative kills there. And I don't want to mention who they involved because that'll give things away. But I think the two kills that took place there in that chapel, that was a pretty good setting, too.
Mhm.
To me, setting is a big part of this. It's not
Yeah.
just how they kill somebody and how dramatic or gory it is, but it's also where it takes place. And I do
Mhm.
think that that chapel was one of the more atmospheric parts of this movie. It was a
Yeah.
movie that didn't have enough atmosphere for me, but it did in that scene toward the end. So I thought that was good.
Yeah. That was a really good setting, I think, for the final scene. I mean, they had one at a drive-in, which I thought was kind of, I don't know, predictable or corny or something like that, but yeah, the chapel scene was actually pretty good. And, like, for me, I did give Hard
Yeah,
Eyes 3 stars, like, I did give it 3. It's kind of a good choice, I thought, if you're in the mood for, like, a lighter horror. Um, Again, like I mentioned in the first segment, I am so not a slasher horror movie fan. Um, so this one for me was less intense, and that was good for me to try to get through this. And it was just more of a
yeah,
playful approach, I think, and just one easier for me to digest, I guess. Um,
hmm,
it's not a movie I would have rushed out to see, but because we were doing a Valentine's Day themed episode, like this was one of the ones that came to mind. And I'm glad I checked it out. It was a fast moving movie. Like, I didn't find that it dragged at all, and it was meant to be fun, not really harsh or brutal. It's
mm,
definitely not perfect. Some of the comedy and the characters, I mean, they were good, and then some weren't, like you mentioned, and I do like that they tried to put a different spin on, like, a Valentine's Day slasher type of a movie. I
right.
do feel that it's more geared towards, again, like a lot of these, like, I think it's geared towards a younger, I don't know, late teenagers, early young adult crowd. Um, I can see this as being like a sleepover type movie that you're gonna rent and your teenage slumber party, or they're gonna gravitate towards this movie.
Yeah,
Um, it's definitely not for everyone, but, for a slasher build movie, it worked well enough for me, so I did give it 3 stars. Probably a little bit much, but I did give it
yeah,
3. Definitely not as good as the first one that we talked about earlier, My Bloody Valentine.
yeah. Oh, I think that's a fair appraisal. I think even though I have different thoughts on the movie, and
Mhm.
I'll get into those in a moment, to me, it's not always just the rating that you give a movie. Sometimes
Mhm.
on my Facebook page, the Ghostly Gallery Facebook page, I'll give a film, maybe 3 stars, and somebody will say, well, that's a 5-star movie. And then they don't give you any reasons for it. To me,
Right.
the reasons, the explanation of why you like or don't like a movie are more important than just
Mhm.
the number of stars. So, and I think you've made a pretty good argument there. I also have to say that I fall only slightly out of the teenage category by about 40 years, but that's another issue. So for me, Hard Eyes does some things that I just don't like.
Mhm.
First of all, they use the repeated newscast updates as a way of advancing the story and telling us about what the killer is up to and giving us more updated information about the killer and where he might be. And too often in horror movies, this just comes across as clumsy and fake. It doesn't seem like an authentic news broadcast. And that was the case in this film. So that fell flat.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other problem is the reveal of the Hard Eyes Killer. And that's supposed to be a major moment. And for me, it was a complete letdown. Without saying who the killer or killers were, I can tell you that one of the killers that's revealed, and I've already kind of given you a clue, there are multiple killers involved, but one of the killers revealed, I don't even remember from the movie. To me, it's such a background character.
Yeah.
So in my mind, when the killer in a mystery like this is revealed, it should make you think, aha, that was someone we saw earlier. And you rethink the earlier scenes where that character played in the movie. And that just didn't happen here. This did not strike a chord with me at all. So that was a big, big problem. Now, then you have this aspect of it's billed as a comedy and a horror, but for me, the comedy did not land. Maybe they needed more comic actors. The actors, it seems like to me that they had in this film, other than Olivia Holt, who has done some comedy before, most of these actors I don't recognize as comic actors.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe they just couldn't pull it off. I don't think the script was that great either. I don't think they were given the material. So the comedy falls flat. And when comedy falls flat, that always drags a movie down. A couple of lines were funny, but not that many. And so if the comedy is not delivering, then it's got to make up for things with the horror.
Mm-hmm.
And this just didn't have enough in the way of frights to carry itself as a horror film. So that part of it was not able to make up for the inadequacy of the comedy. I've given you a lot of negative assessments here. I will say that this was a slickly produced film. You could tell that this was put together with some money.
Mm-hmm.
Some effort was put into this. And it is kind of a slick packaged modern day horror movie. And that is probably going to be appealing, as you say, to a younger audience. So there were some aspects of the film that had some strengths. And again, that chapel scene toward the end, that really, in some ways, salvaged what I think could have been a real disaster.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it 2.5 stars. I'm going to say that this was not this great film that all these fans are raving about and makes them clamoring for a sequel to come out very quickly. That may happen in 2026. This is a movie that didn't live up to some of the hype, which again, I wasn't really aware of before, and I've only become aware of since doing some research after watching the movie. So it's a film that I think it could have been much better. I think maybe if they had ditched the comedy and tried to play it a little more seriously, played up that angle, played up the mystery, I think this could have been better. I think it's mediocre. I'm going to give it 2.5 stars. Probably the younger you are, the more likely you are to enjoy the movie. If you're more toward my age group, maybe you'll be a little bit more skeptical of this. So I'll go 2.5 stars, a little bit less than what you said.
Yeah, and as I was watching this, I'm like, you know what? I think my kid would really like this. He's not into horror, but he might like it. So that's definitely like the age bracket that I would say, because it's like late teens, early young adulthood, for sure. I can't say that it would be something I would watch again, and it's not. Well, depending on what a sequel would be like and how it comes across, it probably wouldn't be something that I would run out and stand in line at the theater to go see either. So, granted, I know it has like this big cult following, so I'd be kind of curious to see what the next chapter, what they're going to do with it. If it's going to be the similar type of a story, or what they're going to do with it.
Yeah. I would say bring back Olivia Holt in the lead. and maybe don't bring back anybody else. Of course, a lot of the characters were killed off in this movie, so unless they're somehow resuscitated, I don't know that they can come back for a second movie. But I think if you're going to play it as a comedy again, bring in some actors that have more comic experience, and maybe put a little bit more effort into making it funny and amusing, because horror comedies, can be done. They can be effective, like Tucker and Dale versus Evil. That's a perfect example of a great comedy horror film. Watch a movie like that, maybe take some lessons from it, even though the story itself is completely different, and then I think you could have something that's considerably better in the sequel. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. So our two movies, Hard Eyes. Tracy went 3 stars. I went 2.5. And both Tracy and I, very big fans of the first movie we talked about from 1981, My Bloody Valentine. We each gave that 3.5 stars. Well, Tracy, thank you as always. Always good talking to you about vintage and contemporary horror films. Glad to have a chance to chat again, as we do once a week. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. This has been interesting. It's definitely interesting, and happy discount chocolate day to you.
Yeah, you look at Valentine's Day horror films, there aren't necessarily that many. It's not like, Halloween theme films. It's not like Christmas theme films. You have to do a little bit more digging. But I think we've presented 2 that do have followings, although very distinct followings, and very different types of films.
Exactly.
My thanks to Tracy. Thanks, of course, also to the listeners as well. A reminder that if you like our program on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe to our channel, and make sure you share that interest with other people that are fans of horror. And if you prefer our audio version, you can hear this show every week. It debuts Thursday on Podbean, and you can certainly share that as well to other folks. Our thanks to Tracy. Our thanks to everybody for joining us in this Museum of the Macabre. And we do hope we'll see you again next time, right here in the Ghostly Gallery.